Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James, Callum, and Alum. How you going, boys?
Not bad.
Was skewed.
Good. It's a bit of a classic review this week, and sort of a not classic review at the same
Revisit.
time. So we all rewatched Blade Runner, or me, Callum, James rewatched the OG Blade Runner recently. And we're also going to revisit Blade Runner 2049, which is a movie we have mixed feelings about.
Hmm.
It's we talked about it, I feel like, on the old show. It's been a long
Yeah,
time.
7 years ago when it came out,
Yeah, and we're
we
still not sure how we feel about it.
yeah, I remember we did the review for the old show and we talked about it then and we were just kind of like, oh, I don't think it's as good as people are saying. People are saying it's better than the original, and we were kind of like, oh, it's good, I guess, but we had lots of problems with it.
Yeah,
It's definitely not as good as the original. Um, and over the years, at least me personally, I was always kind of it's- like the longer I got away from it, the more I was like, I don't think I like it. I don't think it's good. And I was like, we should revisit it. We should talk about it on the show again and see if our opinions have changed. I should rewatch it. And this is the first time I've rewatched 2049 since it came out of the movies. Um, and I think I feel pretty much the same.
mm.
It's
I
not a lot has changed.
no, I think I rewatched them pretty much back to back. I watched the original on Saturday and 2049 on Sunday.
Yeah, same.
And the original is still just it's the GOAT. It's the masterpiece
Yeah.
of modern science fiction, right? It's a classic.
Hmm.
And I think 2049 has a lot of brilliant ideas, a lot of cool set pieces, but it's just not a good sequel.
Yeah. I think like I mean I'm gonna repeat myself from 7 years ago because I literally have the same feelings. So I don't yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is so because my thoughts were um now Alm's messaging and oh okay. You should have said that because then I can stop. What was I talking about?
Your thoughts
Um,
were,
Yeah, my thoughts were when I saw it, like it just doesn't have the same impact or the same atmosphere or the same uh just engrossing nature of the
It's
original.
unfortunately more spectacle than story.
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's also maybe too plot heavy.
Yeah, so
Is
one of the problems I have with the film is that I was talking to Nathan about it. I'm like, the original Blade Runner is a relatively, no, Jake, sorry. Or was it Alum? Must
We
have been Alum.
discussed it. Yeah,
I get everyone confused,
he
all the
gets his
people.
brown men confused frequently.
Yeah, and my white men,
He's a
yeah.
closet racist.
Just a racist in general. Um, no, the original Blade Runner is relatively simple. It's a man has to go back into the police force, for lack of a better word. He hunts down. He's got a
it's
group of
just
targets he has to hunt down. Plus, there's a romance B plot,
it's a
and then
1940s
yeah.
film noir, like hard-boiled detective movie. Guy has to track
Yeah.
down criminals pretty much.
But
There's a
then
lady
the
doing cartwheels and then she gets shot. And yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like when you take the actual story structure, it's relatively simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
He tracks them down one at a
It's more
time. The plot evolves as he does bit by bit, and then he gets to the climax. Whereas you get to 2049, and they add in so much bloat to the story. What should have been a similar type of story with Kay tracking down a group of targets and uncovering more about himself or more about
yeah. The first
the world ends up being this whole thing about identity and memory and
well
all these other story
The
elements which are good
first
in theory, but when you add them to the world of Blade Runner, it just seems so heavy.
the first
And
movie,
I mean heavy as in bloats, not heavy as in
mm,
thematically heavy. It just weighs the movie down.
well, the first movie examined those questions quite well anyway.
yeah.
Like the whole kind of what does it mean to be human? The first movie kind of dealt with those themes appropriately without derailing the story. And I think that's kind of one of the problems I have with 2049 is that it tries to lean into those questions, but in doing so, it kind of derails the story.
It
Yeah.
yeah, and it also because it's so long, it's 45 minutes longer than the original. And not a lot of that is trying to reconnect to the original movie.
Yeah.
So you get like the first hour and a half is about Ryan Gosling's character Kay, like the new protagonist of this story, and it's got some interesting bits. And then once you introduce Harrison Ford, now you have to sort of connect it back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the
yeah.
original. Um, and there's all these like different plot points. I still have no idea what Jared Leto's character's like uh idea, like his motivation was to create. He wants to create more robot slaves by having them breed
Yeah.
normally,
He
procreate
wants
normally.
essentially he wants an army of replicants.
Yeah, which
He
doesn't
just
Um,
wants
make
to play
any
God
sense.
is one of his main
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
I
and also
remember.
read from a different script to what the other characters are reading from, because half his shit does not make sense.
yeah.
It's
I
all, yeah,
think
it's like
he wants an
faux
army of replicants
philosophical.
for whatever reason. It's not explored very
Yeah,
well.
but he already manufactures replicants. He's like, I can't make enough
Yeah,
of them. I need to
yeah.
get them to breed, like procreate naturally and be born and grow up. And I'm like, that make doesn't make any sense.
So yes, paying for their schooling and everything else is going to be much cheaper.
Yeah, and conditioning
Do you know
them
how to
and
raise children, sir?
I mean, yeah, it's just that still doesn't make. And he's only in like two scenes, so he's not really
I think
super important to the.
the problem with this is the idea of, like kind of having the replicants evolve to the state where they can procreate and breed, and like that kind of adds to that question of what does it mean to be human. Um, but then they kind of got carried away with that plot point, and they kind of made it maybe too much of a focus.
Yeah,
We lost.
I think like the
Did we
original.
lose Callum?
Yeah, he dropped out. Hopefully he's gonna rejoin now. But like like we said, the original is a simple plot, but overall it's about the characters and the idea of what does it mean to be human. If these replicants are so close to being human, or they're almost indistinguishable, and throughout the movie they're getting emotions and learning things for the first time, and Deckard, whether he's a replicant or not, is going through this journey of having to kill them and like also realizing his own humanity and their humanity. Um, and I think 2049 does some of that as well, but then it's like I said, it's overly long, it drags, and it has a lot of more like complicated plot points, with Rachel having the Messiah baby who's, the first replicant to be born. And then there's right near the end of the movie, there's uh, a robot like a group of robot.
Allusions, yeah, to a
Yeah,
robot
they're like,
uprising. Then
oh,
again,
they're,
never
and I'm
pays
like,
off.
yeah, never. It's like there's one scene they're like, oh, we're gonna start a revolution, a
Uh,
replicant revolution, and I'm just like, huh? Shouldn't that be the
Yeah.
movie?
That's
is
kind of
there
what I'm
like
talking about when it comes to all the different story elements they try to introduce. I was saying to Nathan, the movie's really good. Sorry guys, I disconnected for a
That's all right.
second. The movie's really great as a collection of interesting science fiction scenes,
Yes.
right? But then when you try to connect them all together and then connect all of that back to the original movie, it gets too heavy in itself. It's like the
Bogged
way it
down, yeah.
handles the themes. There's a lot of navel gazing. There's a lot of what's the word we're looking for? Like fat. It has so much fat on it that it doesn't need to be there. But when you look at each
Yeah.
scene is good.
It's
Do you
it's
know what I
also
mean?
like, yeah, technically it's a very good movie. Like it's
Yeah.
well done technically. Denis Villeneuve, director, he's a great director, and visually it's really nice, and the special
Roger
effects are pretty
Deakins?
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
Roger Deakins did photography. Like it's really, and it's well acted and whatever. So technically their scenes are good when you watch them. But just overall, like I felt myself not caring about anything that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
Um,
It seems like there was a lot cut out of the script too. Like there was a lot they kind of had to make compromises on. Because as we were just saying, that whole robot uprising thing, they kind of feels like it was left in from either a different
I
movie
don't know. I mean, the
idea
movie's already
or
so long. Like,
yeah, but like that went on nowhere and it comes out of nowhere and it goes nowhere. So I think like is that
yeah,
from another draft of the film. They couldn't somehow write it out. They kind of had to awkwardly
I don't
leave it
know.
in there.
I
Like
think
it doesn't feel in place in this movie necessarily.
yeah.
It feels like they're trying to tell a trilogy and they only had 2 movies.
Yeah, and the first movie already came out and they, 35 years before and couldn't
Yeah,
Yeah.
they couldn't
legit.
retcon it.
The way they left the story to me, it feels like they wanted to tell a third part.
Definitely. Definitely there
I
feels
think
like something missing, yeah.
Because
And
like if you only had 2 movies, right, you wouldn't be bogging it down with all of that world building that you're not even going to pay off on.
that's the other thing is I feel like the original Blade Runner, just visually even, not like
Yeah,
there's the language used, which I love the slang they use and stuff that brings you into that world. But just visually, like it transports you into the future. Like it's so dense in terms
yeah,
of production design, costume design, the sound design, incredible. 2049, it looks nice, but it's a very quiet movie. And it's sparse
yeah,
visually, and
yeah,
it doesn't transport you into that cyberpunk world that the original did. And
yeah,
so, like in terms of world building, whereas the first movie is a masterclass in transporting you into that world, 2049, it's just like I don't feel like this is a real place. Like I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
feel like outside of the main characters and the plot, I don't feel like there's a lot going on. Like
yeah,
you don't see that level of engrossing sort of background noise and character and movement that you do in the original.
yeah.
Where
Because they leave the city. You know what I mean?
that's the thing, yeah. I love in the original, you're just always in that metropolis, you're always in that cyberpunk city. And yeah, it might make sense that there's some wasteland out there or there's but like it's just this endless
City,
dystopian
dystopian city.
uh
Yeah,
factories and the opening shot with the flames, the smokestacks or whatever. And then like the opening shot of 2049 is we're out of the city straight away.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
most of the movie takes place outside of the city and it becomes it's nowhere near as cyberpunk as the original, nowhere near as film noir. And
yeah.
it loses that feeling of like this claustrophobic melting pot of this kind of gritty, dark city kind of
did
thing.
you see recently or relatively recently, August last year, Ridley Scott expressed his regret at not doing the movie himself, and his
I
version would have been quite a lot different than Denis' version.
I always found it weird that like Ridley like stayed on as producer and was like overseeing the movie, but really it's Denis
Yeah, he
Villeneuve.
from what he said, he had to be
But
careful on
also
what he says, but his version would have had Harrison Ford be closer to the main character, and it would have been like an hour shorter.
yeah, there's that. But I mean, two things. One, I don't, Ridley Scott at the time was doing Alien Covenant, which was god awful. And
Yeah,
he had done Prometheus, before that. And so it's possible his Blade Runner sequel would have been just
worse.
garbage.
Yeah,
But also, I kind of like that, I think this movie would have been even better if it was just about Kate. Like if
Yeah,
Harrison Ford didn't even show up. It's like Harrison Ford's story's done. Rick
yeah,
Deckard and
just a
Rachel
case. Just do a
the, at
case.
it
Yeah.
ended, yeah, the end of the original movie where the elevator door shuts. It's just like
I
that
think I might
ambiguity.
have mentioned this on the actual review we did. I
Mm.
think it would have been interesting if this 2049 was actually an adaptation of the book, where in the book they had that section where he has to figure out who's real and who's a replicant in the police headquarters.
Don't remember that scene. No.
There's like a subplot in the book where where Deckard or an agent Deckard knows has to go into another police station and they're all replicants in there.
Yeah, I don't remember that at
And I'm
all.
like, that'd be an
But
interesting
that's interesting.
thriller.
I think this all like 2049 also hints at a lot more interesting movies. Like
Yeah.
like the movie starts with Dave Bautista's character and he's like hiding out on a farm or whatever. And I'm like, he should have been more of a character. He should have been even the main character. That's an interesting story. Um, or it should have been about the robot uprising, or it should have been, yeah, more about the police station. Like,
So we
Yeah.
fixed the story. It was going to be Kay and David Bautista's character, where Kay is like constantly on the chase of him.
oh yeah. Or it becomes like a buddy cop movie where they're forced to work together. That would
But
be
Come on,
cool.
man. If
like,
you're gonna do any buddy cop movie, you know it's gonna be Kay and Deckard because Kay has that daddy complex.
Yeah, 100%.
like Nathan said, movie had lovely scenes. The overall cohesively didn't really create
You just want
a
Cyberpunk the
a,
Fugitive.
a Blade Runner
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
because like even the first scene was there's fog out to fog out the ass and you can't see anything and the car lands. That whole scene, great scene.
Mm,
And it's like, but again, like you said, this is supposed to be a Blade Runner movie where like you're in a packed city,
mm.
and everything else, and then you
Even
just
even when they're in the city, like it doesn't feel as dense
no. And
as the
by all
original.
accounts, it should be even more dense because it's further into the
30,
future.
yeah, it's 30
Yeah.
years in the future, and it's just like it it's just Denis Villeneuve's style is, I guess, much more sleek and modern. And I remember we talked about it when we originally talked about the movie. Like, I think a lot of people mistake just modern filmmaking and being sleek and modern
You know
as
what?
being better than an
You
older
know what
movie.
the correction is? We need Lars von Trier's version of Blade Runner.
No, that is completely off. Yeah, that's
It'd
on
be
another.
interesting. It
Yeah,
would be
100%. It'd
interesting.
be super interesting. But yeah, that's not what I meant at
Or
all.
Cronenberg.
Cronenberg would be
Cronenberg
great.
could do an
Lynch,
interesting
I
one.
mean, yeah, you just throw anyone out there, it would be interesting.
Some grimy, dirty, kind of weird
I think
metropolis.
Yeah.
Carpenter would take it would be an interesting one. Well, especially
Yeah,
if he was in like his
like
80s kind
80s
of
Carpenter,
phase.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, back in the 80s, a lot of filmmakers would have been really interesting.
I didn't get a chance to watch the anime yet.
The
The Black
series or
Lotus.
the
The Black Blade Runner Black
Blackout?
Lotus.
Oh, Black Lotus, yeah.
Yeah, all
So,
the Blackout shorts on YouTube. I haven't
yeah,
had a chance to watch either.
I rewatched so before 2049 came out, they released three short films, one animated, like anime, called Blackout 2022. Uh, then there was 2036 Nexus Dawn, which is live action, and then 2048 Nowhere to Run or something like that. And that's live action too. And they kind of set up some of the characters and story and backstory
Mm,
for the uh
Again, there's so much
2049.
bogged down.
Again, yeah, and again, it's just like you don't have to watch them to understand the movie, but it does flesh out a lot. And you know,
Just
watching
release the damn film.
watching Blackout again, I'm like, Blackout's a more interesting story, I think, where the replicants basically cause a citywide uh or even maybe worldwide blackout so that they erase all the records of who's human and who's
Replicant, yeah.
replicant. And I'm like, that's interesting. That maybe that should have been the movie instead. So that's the thing with 2049 is there's a lot going on. Um, and like it could have gone so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah,
all it hints at more interesting things than it actually
yeah. And I think
does in
again that
itself.
it comes down to our main problem with the movie is that it tries to do too much, and it has all these great ideas, but none of them really make it a good Blade Runner sequel.
Yeah. And also as a science fiction, like the original Blade Runner is so influential, and this movie is like, yeah, it's a sequel, so it can't really do anything new. I mean, it can, but it also it's beholden to that
Yeah.
original. But also, yeah, watching 2049 again, I'm like, I've seen all of this before. Not only in the original, but in every other sci-fi. It doesn't bring a lot new to the table. And that's not necessarily, not every movie has to be
Yeah, yeah,
super,
yeah.
super like groundbreaking. But yeah, it felt, and again, technically it's very good. Like when Kay, has the hologram girlfriend,
Yeah.
and he gets the real woman to like
I
Yeah,
believe the
sync up.
hologram girlfriend actually hires the hooker for him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
she does.
correct.
She's
See,
using his credit card.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's the interesting
Like
stuff, you know?
Damn it,
technically,
Alexa, don't do that.
technically, it's like a very well done scene, and I
Yeah.
really like it. But the whole scene, I was just like,
It's pointless. It adds
it's
nothing to the
boring.
story.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and they're setting up Joy, the hologram girlfriend, as and Kay is like lonely and he's a replicant and he has this girlfriend who he thinks loves him, and then at the end he sees the big hologram, and he realizes he's not special. She wasn't in love with him. She's just programmed
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to
See,
do what he wants.
that
And
should have been like the key thing for him. There shouldn't be several other subplots for him to
that's the thing.
explore.
I'm like, the movie should just be more about him and like again, like Deckard and the whole like miracle baby. I'm like, just like well, that's another movie.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I would have been happy with just obviously it'd be far more derivative of the first one and still replicating. It's just he doesn't realize he is a replicant at the same time. He's killing and hunting replicants, and then him
Well,
finally having like the existential crisis of I've been like killing my own people this whole time.
yeah. Well, I think one thing I did like about it, because before the movie came out, it was like, are they going to do a thing where, they reveal that Ryan Gosling was a replicant the whole time? And I said, like, I hope they just start the movie and he's a replicant because
Yeah.
we already have that argument with Deckard. Is he a replicant? Was he a replicant? Whatever. Is he human? And I liked that 2049, just as soon as the movie
Yep.
starts, it's like, he's a replicant. There's no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, like one of probably my favorite part of the movie is when Kay has to do his baseline tests.
Yeah, cells.
Yeah, cells interlinked within cells, and like that's that's a really cool way of like doing the Voight-Kampff test from the first movie, but doing it differently and doing it for a different reason, and it's so weird and unsettling and cool.
Yeah.
And some of the other cops are like treating him like shit because he's a
No,
replicant.
he is a second-class citizen.
Yeah,
Hey, you know what,
and
to
I'm
be
like,
fair, here's a skin job.
exactly, but I'm like, that's all interesting. But then after the start of the movie, they don't really address that anymore. There's no real robo-racism after that.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, because that could have been the whole film, right? Him
yeah,
trying to track
that's
down these
interesting.
Oh man,
replicants while also
imagine.
facing discrimination.
Yeah,
Also, to an
like,
extent, he could have been anything else other than a cop. You know what I've had running through my head today?
mm,
Taxi driver in a cyberpunk city. Imagine
yeah.
it's like he's got a mystery to
I
unravel
also
with
think,
a customer or something.
He has to run from the Blade Runner.
I
Yeah,
also,
He's like the victim.
I
It's
also,
yeah, like
like
imagine
the most
imagine
dangerous, the
he's
most
That's-
dangerous game, except it's Blade
that's
Runner.
interesting. It's called Blade Runner, but the Blade Runner is the antagonist, and
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
protagonist is, yeah,
like
that's
Terminator. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Imagine that. You know what I mean? He's like a he's like a space taxi driver trying to uncover a mystery or something that
I
happened
think,
to one of his patients, or he has to hire a patient, a client, or he has to hide one of his passengers from the Blade Runner. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
there's so many things you could do with that world. Alan's dying for some reason over
I'm
there.
just imagining like some Armenian guy like with an accent, who drove a taxi around. And there's a guy with a gun chasing him. He's like, "What are you doing? I'm just immigrant trying to drive taxi."
Look,
And the guy's like,
you could do Collateral, but one of
Yeah,
them is
exactly.
one of them's a
Collateral in
robot.
space. Did it have to be
But
like?
also, I
Did
think
it
that's
have to be the
actually,
police route? I guess
yeah, I
it
mean,
did.
it's called Blade Runner, so I guess the movie has to be about a Blade Runner. But yeah, you can
But
be more
subvert
creative.
my
Yeah,
expectations,
exactly.
man.
You can be more creative. I think also this movie doesn't make a lot of sense because at the end of the first movie, the uh, Nexus 6 androids are so close to humans.
Nexus 8?
No, in the original, it's Nexus
Oh, in the
6.
original, yeah.
They're so close to humans that they're outlawed on Earth, and they're only used for like labor
Yeah.
and combat on off-world colonies. Then the canon of this sequel is that after the blackout, like that for some reason the Nexus 6s were decommissioned. They started making Nexus 8s, which were even more.
The Wallace?
Yeah, no, that comes later.
Yeah.
The
But
Nexus
the Wallace
8,
company bought them,
yeah,
right?
but the Nexus 8s have a normal lifespan and are assumedly even more human-like. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense why that would
They're
happen.
more
Then the
controllable.
blackout, no, then the blackout happens. So you can't tell who's human and who's replicant. so it's harder to discriminate or whatever. And I guess the Blade Runner business would boom. Again, that's a more interesting story. Then Neanderthals,
Blade
Jared
Runners with
Leto's
a dollar sign.
yeah, Blade Runners, yeah. Then Jared Leto's character takes Neander Wallace takes over like the Tyrell Corporation and starts manufacturing robots again, even
Oh,
though
he's such a piece of shit.
they've been made illegal.
I mean the
Um,
character, not the man, but
well, the man apparently
yeah,
is not too great
the man
either.
has some
Yeah,
strange
but then
behaviors.
he starts manufacturing again for whatever. Again, his motivations don't make sense. And I guess but they're not illegal. They're not illegal on Earth anymore. I'm like, none of this makes sense. And again, like from that world building, that's that juicy sci-fi, like, ooh, the all the possibilities. I'm like, why am I thinking about this stuff when I should be thinking more about the philosophical questions like I was in the original?
So if they're not illegal on Earth anymore, does that mean they've got no grounds to kill the kid? Or is it because they're from the previous generation of
I
replicant, they do have
no no
grounds to
no.
kill the kid?
I don't I think because it's yeah previous generation they're still like you can track down the old models because they're not as controllable quote unquote
I
as the
think that,
new models.
and I think the kid represents a
Um
different problem to them because the kid represents uncontrolled replication of the replicants,
yeah and like
and they don't want that child to exist because
yeah and now it's
like,
like they're
or it's
their
a race.
own
I guess it's a race to destroy the child so that people can't back engineer that child and figure out how it works,
hmm,
right? So you've got the cops don't want this because it'll make their job impossible if the replicants can basically be broken free of restrictions imposed upon them by humanity,
hmm,
essentially, yeah. So like if they can procreate, then they don't need to be made, and then they can, I guess
they're
it
their
can
own
they can be their own thing, which
species
they
yeah
don't,
their own
from a law enforcement perspective, is not a good deal, right?
Yeah, but
And
as a
also
society
Wallace
in
does
general, if you've created a race of creatures, let's just say that are this sentient and kind of do their own thing, at that point they have some rights that you can't, you probably shouldn't be
yes,
violating anyway.
but
But
they're more powerful than the
yeah,
humans, right? So they can take over with ease.
sounds like some
Um,
race politics
yeah,
going
but
on.
it doesn't
Possibly,
like it doesn't
but
make any sense. And
yeah,
I think the movie would have been better if it was set off-world. Like I think automatically you could still have like a robot uprising and the Blade Runners have to go off-world to deal with it. I think that's that's an interesting story. And like Nathan was saying with like, having a non-Blade Runner character or whatever, I think also having because there are replicants used for just manual labor, there are pleasure models, there are combat models. I'm like, you could explore any type of replicant in an off-world colony doing, menial tasks as slave labor. Um, and
James just wants Perfect Days by Wim Wenders in space.
Oh, I
oh
mean,
well,
I take it.
that's not what I was going for, but okay.
I'll take it. Can you imagine that?
Could
It's
you
just like a
imagine
replicant cleaning toilets for three
Three hours.
hours.
original Blade Runner production and costume special effects, but just like guys going about their lives? That
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Or like
Alan, you
Paris,
haven't seen this
Texas.
movie.
Imagine
Alan,
Cyberpunk Paris,
yeah.
Texas.
That's
Alan,
yeah.
you haven't seen this movie, but
But
Perfect
No.
Days is about a Japanese man who cleans toilets for like 2.5 hours. It's great.
And it's
it's
amazing.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's not what I was getting at. I was just getting at it's like you can make a plot about so many different things. It's science fiction. You can go to
Yeah,
different
yeah.
worlds, you can do so many different things. And again, Blade Runner 2049 hints at interesting things, but the movie itself, despite being so long, doesn't really ever settle on something really interesting and doesn't fully explore all the things it's hinting at. And
Doesn't pay him off.
a lot of that is just Villeneuve's style of just like Ryan Gosling walking really, really slowly through the desert.
But
Um,
has Denis had these problems before with scripts getting away from him?
well, see, this is the thing, right? Before 2049, I mean, what did he did Prisoners, Sicario,
They were all
Arrival,
pretty they were all
all
pretty
all
tight.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
think
then this movie
Denis
comes out.
Denis might not be the problem.
No, I
I
think
feel
this is what I'm getting at. This movie comes out and it's nowhere near as good as those other movies. It's not as it's too uh it drags too much. Then Dune comes out and it has the same problem. So I think this is just Villeneuve's like thing now, is he makes
Mm.
sort of big budget mainstream movies that on a visual level are very impressive and are kind of slow and appear to be contemplative on the surface, but underneath, the script is just messy.
Plain Devil's Avocado here.
Mm.
Is that just because they're both franchise films, big tentpole franchise
Oh,
films?
that's 100%, not 100%, but that is a big part of the problem.
I'd like to see Denis go back and do maybe a movie
That's
that doesn't cost that much money, where the
that's
expectations aren't as
Yeah.
high.
And I think I mean, we've talked about it before with a lot of other directors. It's like they're given a big franchise film and they shit the bed, whereas their other
It's the
films,
Marvel problem, yeah.
sort of, yeah. I think I would definitely like to see him do a smaller movie or a, non-science fiction movie again. Um, but yeah, like I don't hate 2049. It's just watching it again, I was just like, I feel pretty much the same as I did 7 years ago. Uh, I just felt cold towards it.
It's a disappointing spectacle. Like I said, lots of interesting science fiction scenes, but it's not much more than that,
Yeah.
really.
And I think also it's
As much
get
as I love the Baby Goose.
yeah.
I love Villeneuve. Like, like, it looks great, but like I said, it's just when you look at the totality of it, it just doesn't really work as a whole.
Yeah, I think also like it's gained this kind of cult following over the last few, and I mean it's interesting because the original movie didn't do well when it came out. The awful theatrical version, which was forced upon Ridley Scott by the,
Yeah.
studio. And then but it grew this cult following, and then there was the director's cut, which was much better. And then finally Scott was able to make his ultimate version with the final cut, which is the definitive version of the movie and is the only version of the movie that you have to see, and is the movie that we talk about when we say the original Blade Runner. Um, so it's interesting that the 2049 comes out, doesn't do super well financially, kind of positive critical reception, some maybe mixed reviews. And then all these years later, it still comes up from time to time, people saying, oh, it's better than the original. It's one of the great sci-fi movies. But after all these years revisiting it, I'm just like, I don't feel it's that good of a movie, and it's not a very good Blade Runner sequel. Like
Yeah,
I
I
said,
agree.
technically, like the scenes are good,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, yeah.
overall, I'm just kind of like, eh,
I
it's
agree 100%. I
it's
completely agree with you.
it's never
What?
gonna be as good as the original.
No. What do you think, Alan? We've done a lot of talking. What are
Oh,
your
I
thoughts?
look when you I had a soft spot for this movie, and I still do because it's Blade Runner. It's got Ryan Gosling, it's got all the good stuff. But when you look at it objectively, it's not really that great of a film. It's definitely not a good Blade Runner film. It's again like the whole. If you choose out individual scenes, some of them look amazing, absolutely amazing, hard to beat in other films as well. But when you put them all together, you don't really get a great film. It's just something that's okay. Like a lot of things don't
Yeah.
really
Mm.
make as much sense as they should. The whatchamacallit, what's the bad guy's name? Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the God complex, but again, when you just see the scenes where he's in, again, it absolutely looks like he's reading from a completely different script. And it's just like, why are you doing this? You know?
Again,
Yeah.
those scenes are so interesting on their own.
Yeah.
Like, really interesting science fiction scenes.
Mm.
It's just such a shame. Like, I'm just like, the
I
movie just
think,
doesn't feel cohesive as such.
I mean, one thing I do still appreciate is like it's not just a dumb spectacle action movie. Like it
Oh no,
easily
they try.
Yeah, like when they announced it, I was just like, oh no, they're gonna turn it into like a silly, Zack Snyder, like guys, shooting CGI, like jumping around and like robot suits and all this stuff. I'm like, I'm glad that they didn't go that way with it. It's still not a complete like studio
It's
PG
not,
13.
yeah,
They
yeah.
could have
It's
done a
not Michael Bay.
PG-13.
It's not Michael Bay directing Blade Runner,
Yeah, but I
which
think
should be an
even
interesting one to see.
yeah.
No, it wouldn't.
Yes, it would.
Interesting
The
in
whole city just explodes. That's it.
yeah. Um, yeah,
I want to watch David Fincher's version.
that would be interesting, yeah. But I think also like it also
David
la
Fincher's script, at least.
it also lacks the weight of the original. Like
Yeah, I agree.
considering, I mean, there is CGI in the new one, but there are a lot of practical elements too. But it just doesn't have the same,
Oomph.
yeah, like just everything in the original feels so real and
It's lived in.
we lived in and weighty, and just everything in the new one, it still feels very,
Plastic and light.
yeah. Even like
Yeah.
the action scenes and like the shootouts, it's like less impact.
It's
It's
Yeah.
because
just
it's not, and I mean this in the actual usage of the word, not the meme usage. It's not dank. It's not gritty.
yeah. Yeah,
It's, you
like
know
I
what I
said,
mean?
visually,
Like when
yeah,
you
it's more
Blade
sparse.
Runner, the original Blade Runner is a dark film.
Yeah.
There's not, it's well
It
lit, but it's visually quite a dark, dim film, apart from
yeah.
the neon lighting. Whereas Blade Runner
But
2049 often has lots of brightness.
yeah, but it's also just the filmmaking, like,
Yeah.
the quote unquote action scenes in the original, like they're very heavy and weighty and like bloody and gritty and dirty. And the new movie tries to do a bit of that, but it's mostly just kind of modern, very quick,
Yeah,
feels, yeah, not as,
I will
yeah.
say bonus points for hologram Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, and
And
Elvis too.
Elvis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that scene.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
Like I said, I don't know if the scene should be there, but it looks great.
yeah, exactly.
exactly. Like technically, I'm like, this is cool, but I'm like, I don't know if I really like this being in a Blade Runner movie, like Elvis, all of a
Yeah,
sudden, and it's the same with the
yeah.
score. Like, I still have no idea how to feel about the score. I don't think it's that good in 2049, considering how incredible
You were never going to meet
Vangelis.
Vangelis' score
Yeah,
on the first one, though.
Vangelis's score in the original is so amazing, so iconic, so beautiful and haunting and weird and everything. And like Hans Zimmer and the guy he did it with, Benjamin Wallfish, I think is the guy's name. Their score for 2049 is just like, here's a sci-fi score.
Yeah.
Here's a weird droning sound and a big
Yeah,
boom.
yeah,
And considering how quiet the movie is, oftentimes it'll just be really quiet. Ryan Gosling slowly walking through a building, and then it'll just go boom. I'm like, oh, okay, cool story, like cool score. And then
yeah.
again, this is why I'm worried is like Denis Villeneuve directing Dune, and then Hans Zimmer doing the Dune score, which I didn't like the score for that either.
Yeah.
Like it feels like they're setting up a precedent now for what their work's going to be like in the future, and I don't really dig it. Um,
Yeah. It is what it is.
yeah. Anyway, like I thought it'd be interesting to revisit this movie after all these years. I know the
And
original review isn't available online anymore, but I mean, those were back
we're
in
s-
the
we're saying the same things we did
prehistoric.
back then
Yeah, that
anyway.
was back in the prehistoric days of us on the radio. But yeah, now I'm just like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to revisit it? Like, and Callum was going to watch it because it came up in his stack of Blu-rays and 4Ks. And I was like, oh, we should all rewatch it and talk about it again. But yeah, I mean, nothing's really changed after all these years. I'm a different person than I was 7 years ago.
I'm not.
But my feelings towards the movie haven't changed a lot. Maybe a little bit, but not a lot. Like, I just don't think it's as good as a lot of people say it is. I don't think it's awful, but also
Yeah.
it's just never going to live up to the original. I mean, I'm also biased because I love the original so much. But yeah, I mean,
Gosling, he does his best, but there's just something special about Ford's the charisma he carries in the original. It's just everything from his performance to his haircut to his costume design
mm.
was just
That's the
lightning
other
in a
thing.
complete lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
The
he is the
costumes,
Whereas
Rizzler.
that's right. Whereas you look at Gosling and it's just like, he just looks like a guy in
Gosling,
high-tech clothing.
yeah, Gosling's definitely like Harrison Ford's the beat up old
Grizzled.
hard-boiled grizzled detective in the original
Yeah.
movie. And Ryan Gosling's character in this movie is more of like, yeah, this kind of restrained, like
Robot boy.
I'm the
Yeah,
I'm the sad boy robot who has to
Yeah.
kill other robots. And I get a pat on the head from my superior at the police station, and I have a fake girlfriend to make me feel more real. And that's a really
it's like
interesting. That's a really interesting story. That's a
he's a
really
doomer. That's what he is.
yeah. But then you've got this 3 hour movie of just like him slowly walking and all the other plot details, and at the end of it, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
bro should have just gone back to his robot girlfriend.
Maybe that's why people like it now. Like people are like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I'm
Me
gonna
and
put
my
in the chat.
me and my waifu.
I'll put a link in
Look,
the. I'll
I'm a
put a link
doomer
in the
too,
chat.
but
I put a
you don't
link.
see me killing my own
Listeners,
kind.
listeners aren't going to be able to see this, but I'll put a link in the chat, and that's what I imagine Ryan Gosling's character Kay driving around the city listens to. Just
Oh
Doomer
yeah,
jazz,
Oh
Doom
just
yeah,
Jazz.
late
just
night
late
Doomer
night
jazz.
Doomer jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
We
sad.
should do a fan edit, rescore the movie with Doomer jazz.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That
and
might
just
actually make a
and just
better film.
give him the Robert De Niro haircut as he just wanders around
Oh,
doing his
the
stuff.
Mohawk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, putting the Taxi Driver soundtrack score on 2049 would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I thought it would be interesting to revisit, but now I'm kind of regretting it. I'm like, it probably wasn't worth it. If anything, we should have just re-released the old episode and people can deal with the cringe of listening to our
No,
crappy. But
no, I think it was worth my time. Um, that was due for a
I
rewatch
think
anyway.
also, yeah, like one of the reasons I'm not like, because now with letter, because I've talked about I don't really like letter grading or number grading or giving star ratings to movies, but now with Letterboxd, I'm trying just trying to sort of get into a groove of like, here's my star rating. And one of my things I've been sort of attributing to the stars is basically one is bad, two is okay, three is good, four is really good or great, and five is excellent. So that's the, basic my
Yeah,
feeling. But also, in addition to that, it's one is bad and I never want to see it again. Two is, it's okay. I don't really care if I watch it again. Three is, yeah, I would watch it again, or I might buy it on Blu-ray, but I'm not going out of my way for. Four is, I'm definitely buying it on Blu-ray. I want to watch it again, just not immediately. Maybe not the
yeah,
best, doesn't have to be the most expensive version of the movie. And five is, I love it. I'm gonna buy the most expensive 4K limited edition version. I want to go to the movies and rewatch it again. And in saying that, Blade Runner, the original, is a 5-star movie. I want the 4K box set. I want the toys. I want the Ridley Scott to come to my house and tell me how he did things. I've seen all the documentaries. I've seen the behind the scenes. I've got the books. I've got this, that, the other. 2049, I think, is a 2-star movie for me because I spent 7 years going, maybe one day I'll watch that. And the only reason I rewatched it is because Callum said he was going to rewatch it. And I was like, okay, I guess this is a good time to talk about it on the show. I didn't rewatch it because I wanted to, and I didn't rewatch it because I felt like it. And now
that's
I've watched
fair.
it. I mean, another 7 years can go by, and if I don't have to watch this movie, it's fine.
That's
Like,
fair.
whereas
I'd probably give it.
I watched the original Blade Runner again the other day, and I would watch that again right now. So
Yeah,
good.
I'm leaning towards. I haven't done my letterbox review. I was waiting.
Yeah.
Um, it's a movie I have complicated feelings with, as we've discussed. I agree with all of you guys. I'm leaning towards a 2.5 to 3, only giving it some extra points just because the filmmaking is so nice. But
Yeah.
and the scenes themselves are quite good, but they don't make a good film.
Mm.
So I'm probably leaning towards a 3, just because there are parts of it that I really do love, but it just doesn't make a good movie,
Mm.
putting them all together.
Yeah.
So that kind of just sums up my feelings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
It definitely, yeah, like just the technical aspect of it, it definitely is like worth that.
Yeah. Anyone else got any other thoughts?
Yeah. Anything else?
Anyone
No,
else?
like
Eh.
I think I like the movie more than James, but I like the movie as to me it's like this is gonna sound super dumb, so I'm sorry. When I watch it, I think it's interesting to watch it as a kind of like an anthology of different scenes
Hmm.
because every big scene or sequence has an interesting science fiction theme running through it.
Hmm.
So like, whether it's the investigating the bones and the genetics, or you've got the his relationship with the robot, the girlfriend,
Yeah.
him at the police station,
The whole
fascinating science fiction themes
yeah.
to watch in
That
sequence, but then like I wouldn't watch it as a whole movie, but when I
the
watch it, I look at a scene and I'm like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, like the scene where he goes out to outside of the city to the sort of scrapyard, and there's the guy who has all the slave children. Like, what is this, Judge Dredd? Like, this is an interesting sci-fi
Yeah.
movie, but it feels so out of place.
Yeah, that's how I would watch it.
Yeah, it's like a 3 hour movie where it's like a series of scenes that are all really good and technically well done on their own,
They're loosely
but
Yeah,
connected.
it doesn't work cohesively, and
yeah.
it doesn't work as a Blade Runner sequel, and it doesn't work
Yeah.
in trying to tell Kay's story. Even though
No.
I do like the ending of like Kay sacrifices himself, finds out he's not a real boy, fact sacrifices himself for someone else's happiness. But I'm like, you could have done that in a much shorter runtime and
Yeah.
focused more on him.
Yeah. Yeah, but as a collection of scenes, I
Yeah.
think it's a great film. It's
Mm,
just not a good Blade Runner movie. It's not a particularly good sci-fi movie, but as a collection of scenes, it works
yeah.
if you approach it in that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm just glad it ha so far hasn't sparked 20 sequels because you know they want to.
Well, I think so far we still have a Ridley Scott Amazon Prime live action show
Really?
coming. Blade
Okay.
Runner 2099 or something. I'm gonna look that up right now, but I'm pretty sure that's still going ahead.
Because I heard they did an anime series, Black Lotus, which you mentioned a bit earlier, but I heard it's terrible. It didn't look very good.
Yeah,
Um,
it's still it hasn't been cancelled. So the last
okay,
update for Blade Runner 2099 was in August of 2023.
okay,
Um, the Blade Runner 2049 sequel, Blade Runner 2099, will be a mini-series on Prime Video. Apparently properly headlined by Ridley Scott, like he'll be properly behind this one.
okay.
And it follows like 50 years after 2049.
I hope,
So another kind of big jump in time.
yeah. I think, you know, it is such a rich world that you could do so many different things. So it would be interesting to see something that's not
Yeah,
really
again,
connected.
again, 2099 wouldn't be connected to the release, the original Blade Runner. So it'd be interesting to see if they can do some more interesting things without necessarily being tied to that legacy.
Yeah. But they always find a way to shoe in some fan service, and like here's an old, in this movie, they have like here's an old recording from Rachel and
Yeah,
Deckard in the first movie, and then they literally Rachel shows up, a de-aged
Yeah.
Sean Young shows up. And one of my most hated things in 2049 is that amazing scene in the original with the enhance, go to
Yeah.
sector 41 and enhance, stop. They do that like 5 times in 2049, just not with a photo. They do it with other things.
yeah,
Like, when character Love is bombing, using the drone to bomb the scavengers. And she's like, enhance, go here, fire. And I'm just like, okay,
Same
we
when
get it.
Kay's flying through the desert city or
Yeah, he
whatever,
uses
and
his drone to zoom in when he's trying to find Deckard in Las
yeah.
Vegas, and it's like, zoom in, stop. And I'm like, okay, we get it. It's Blade Runner. We've seen, like, I hate that stuff.
and then
So I'm
he's like,
sure
bees.
the bees, not the bees.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Is that all?
I
Is
think
that all the
I
time
think
we've got for
that's it.
tonight?
Yeah, pretty
We got anything
much.
else? Anything else we want to bring up?
No. After this, I'll
I
go
guess.
sit in my
Well,
chamber and go cells, interlink
Cells
cells.
interlinked.
look, I guess before we wind up, for listeners who actually are interested in maybe some, I guess, better examples of this kind of science fiction done right, inspired by Blade Runner, you have like Ghost in the Shell. That'd be a good one to
Well,
kind of.
that's the thing is the original was so influential.
The
pretty much,
Japanese looked at it and said,
yeah,
"This is us. We own this.
yeah,
This is it's like
anime,
this is me
like
now."
all of anime was just
Yeah,
like, this is, yeah, this is, we
And
made
we're
this?
talking Ghost
yeah,
in the Shell, the anime, not Ghost in the Shell 2017.
No, yeah, not
yeah.
the
No, the anime.
awful
Scatcha.
live action movie,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you got Akira, Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah,
You got all
Cyber
these other,
City. Yeah, there's
yeah,
so many.
Psycho Pass.
Like Cyberpunk, I think we talked about this years ago when we talked about the original Blade Runner, but like other than like Blade Runner, The Matrix, maybe a couple of other movies, there isn't a lot of like really good cyberpunk movies. There are a lot of like B movies that are fun, but not like really good sort
Yeah.
of quality cyberpunk movies. All the best cyberpunk stuff other than like Blade Runner and The Matrix is anime. It's all animated
Yeah, so
stuff.
I'd say for people that are interested in, they like the vibe of the original, and even some moments in the sequel, probably have a look at some of the Cyberpunk animes. Even this, apparently the new Cyberpunk 2077 anime on Netflix is
Yeah,
good.
I watched that. It was good. I haven't even
Um,
played the game and I watched the anime and I'm
yeah,
like, this is fun.
yeah. So, there are stuff out there that will help you scratch that itch,
Yeah.
but maybe
20, yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 is not it.
2049 doesn't scratch the noir itch, doesn't scratch the cyberpunk itch.
Yeah,
Scratches the Gosling itch.
Yeah.
Scratches
yeah,
the Anna de Armas itch.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Doesn't scratch my Harrison Ford itch though, because he's too old. I need the glory years. I got the glory year itch, you know.
yeah,
I watched the original Blade Runner, or the
I'm
Fugitive, or
yeah.
Fugitive. I'd
what's the
kill
Fugitive,
my
one?
yeah.
wife. I don't care.
I
What's
don't
the one?
care.
What's the one where he goes and joins an Amish community?
Oh
Witness.
shit, witness.
Witness. That's a good
That's a
one.
good movie. Yeah, I like that
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, yeah,
when he just
yeah.
walks
Air
in
Force
on her
One.
when she's like showering, just stares at her tits.
Of course, that's the one scene that Alan remembers.
Uh,
There's a lot
Like
of
Oh
the director's
shit!
like, "Do we need this?" He's like, "Harrison was like, yes, yes, we
yeah,
definitely need this scene. It's fun
How
as
many
it is."
more takes?
yeah.
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 Oh
It
man.
does. Yeah. It does scratch my sci-fi itch because like some of the scenes are so cool. But
It's a
I watched the
shame.
original and it was so much better.
Yeah, like just before the original even starts, and it's just like the logos and the opening scroll, that explains the replicants and the backstory. I'm just like, I've seen the movie 100 times, but I'm just like, yeah, like it's so cool. And then the second movie starts, and I'm just like checking my watch. I'm like, okay,
Oh, it's still got 2.5 hours to go.
yeah,
Oh
it's like
no.
two and a
Yeah.
half. Oh my God. And I love long movies.
Yeah.
You guys know, like my favorite
Yeah.
movie
Oh
is
wait.
long.
Wait for next week's review. We got Fighter to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Uh,
Okay. Well, look. I think that's all the time we got for tonight, everyone.
yeah. Sorry
Thanks
to
for
ramble
listening.
on.
No, that's all right. This is the episode that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, Instagram page, Threads page, Twitter page, Newsmask page, and Blue Sky page. And follow us and ring that bell on YouTube.
Hmm.
More videos coming every day as we upload older episodes of the show to
Yeah.
YouTube
Getting
for
close to
your listening
100.
pleasure on the YouTubes.
Hmm. Letterboxd, follow
And
us.
yes, Letterboxd. I'm Nathan B _90.
I'm Channel Drifter, all one word.
I'm Callum Tuesday.
And
Alan 20.
Yeah.
yes. So you can follow along with what we've been
Follow
watching
us.
and,
Yeah.
maybe
Tell us
disagree
how
with our
much you love
opinions.
2049 and how we're wrong.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I guess there's a sea of 5-star reviews for that movie. We're not on
Yeah.
them.
Everyone loves it, but
I
Don't get
watched
this wrong. We wanted to love it, but
yeah,
oh
we want
yeah,
to love
yeah.
it.
There are parts of it I like
Yeah.
Thanks for
within
listening,
shows.
everyone.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.